Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with Mr. Paul Barge of Addleshaw, Goddard, LLP, a law firm in Manchester, right?
Thank you.
Head of the construction and infrastructure branch of the firm, and in charge of our unit contracts by international standards. For him to tell us something about the contents of this unit and maybe the differences, the main differences, what is a F.lli contract, a JCT contract, NEC, and the main differences between them.
Sure. What I've just done is an overview of the NEC contracts. So one of the main differences, NEC covers a very wide range. So there's a lot of sort of 6 or 7 main contract forms. There's 4-ish consultant forms, and then various other ones, design, build and operate contracts, alliance contracts, subcontracts, sub-agreements, adjudication agreements, short form agreements, all within this NEC suite of contracts. So it's too much to cover in one presentation. So what I've done is I've covered the main forms, the main option forms. So I went through the lump sum main contract, remeasurement, 2 target forms, and then a cost reimbursable. And within that, I also covered the main consultant forms as well. There's lots of differences between NEC, F.lli and JCT. That's one of them. The other thing is NEC is designed to cover construction and engineering, both sort of civil engineering and kind of process engineering as well. So it's a very, what I would call a pick and mix contract. So you've got your main options, and then you've got lots and lots of secondary options and various things to choose from. So I think the main difference is it's structured very differently anyway, but that's probably the biggest difference, is it's designed to cover a lot of bases, and also UK and non-UK jurisdictions. So taking all that together, there's a lot of potential permutations and options which I went through today. I mean, there's lots. Key things are the way it's priced differently to a lot of the standard forms. The sort of delay assessment process is very different. There's lots of things in it which are options, which aren't options in a lot of forms that you have to know about. But I think a lot of that comes from, one is the fact it's designed to cover so many bases, and also its central theme, which is a defined programme and contemporaneous sort of assessment of what's called compensation events. Those are the kind of key things I would say with NEC, and hopefully I've given them a good overview of the main principles and the main options of NEC.
Okay. Thank you. And what about the let's call it geography of these contracts? I think the JCT basically is in the UK.
Yeah.
The F.lli is more international.
I agree,
What about the NEC?
NEC is, JC, certainly in the UK, the JCT is the most common contract for construction. But we see in NEC contracts in the UK coming more and more. It's popular with government and local authorities who really push it. So we're seeing it there, particularly on the larger projects, the larger engineering projects. We're starting to see it. And some international stuff, it is designed for use abroad. So, a lot of the provisions are specific. You have to select options where it's in the UK, whereas opposed to outside of the UK. So it's not used that much internationally, but it is starting to come in, I think it's fair to say. But it's not as common domestically as JCT, and it's not as common internationally as F.lli. But we're starting to see it come through, I think it's fair to say.
Okay, thank you. And last question, you saw that practically every student come from a technical background. They are or engineers or architects. Do you think that the unit is structured to give them to be easy to follow for them, or they had some problems, some difficulties?
I think in some ways, I think the thing with NEC is, and I explain this to them, there's a lot of things in NEC which it expects the parties to fill in, that in other contracts would be in the actual contract itself. So, things like scope of works and works information, things like that, it's very, very thin. It doesn't really give you a lot of guidance. So, it's one thing to be sort of technical, but I think you do need to know, you need to learn the contract maybe a bit more than you would with other forms. But in terms of, filling in the detail, as I say, I think you need familiarity with the contract. And I did try and put a bit more of a practical spin on it and some of the issues that you'd have with it. I think once you are familiar with the contract, it probably suits technical people because there's a lot of procedures to follow in it to do with programs and payment and compensation events that are really sort of technical. So I think once you know the contract, it probably does benefit a good technical kind of project manager compared to other forms.
Okay, so thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and see you next time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.